Around 6 months ago, I released a video titled Audio Audit Stevie T, and I'm currently working on a follow-up video to that. I reached out to Steve for comment on the situation, but he's officially declined an interview. However, I did manage to secure an interview with Steve's agent, Tony Cappocchi. What you're about to hear is the unedited version of that interview. I'd like to express my thanks to Tony for allowing me to record and publish the interview, and also it goes without saying, but these are his views, not Steve's, as Steve has officially declined to comment on the situation. So sit back and enjoy the interview. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. So, this is being recorded, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, no worries.
Great, okay. So, Tony, before we start, I just want to thank you for this interview. I know
Sure.
Stevie opted not to, but I do appreciate you spending some time to answer some questions, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
So, just before we get into it, could you pronounce your last name, just so I don't
Yeah,
get that right?
Cappocchi.
Kapaki. Okay, great. So you're Stevie, among others, but you're Stevie's agent and manager. Is that correct?
So I'm his agent. I personally don't use the term manager because of the connotations that come with it. I definitely help with managerial duties, but officially I've never presented myself as a manager, which is also why the company is called Pretty Good Agents, because the impetus for me is to help creators make money, and I don't like to get tied up in their personal lives and their finances and what they say on the internet. And a lot of times that's why it's hard to be a manager, because you're a little bit responsible for what they do. And all I've ever wanted to do is find opportunities for creators to earn money, so they don't have to rely on YouTube's ad revenue systems, or crossing their fingers that their videos don't get striked. So while he might introduce me as his manager and others might, that term is something that's been given to me by them. It's not something that I have asked for from them. Jared was the only person that I was officially like day to day managing, and that was like for 2 years, and that stopped last year.
Okay.
And then I kind of just went on to do the business full time.
All right. I was just wondering because it has, I was looking at your website and it's got talent management there, and I was seeing that maybe Stevie was one of your clients in that regard.
Yeah, that might be a little bit confusing. I definitely understand that. I do talent management for a couple of smaller, like up and coming hip hop guys. But in terms of like content creation dudes, I typically try to not use the term manager. But we do offer talent management services. It's just not something that I typically give to creators online. It's something I usually reserve for like musical artists that I work with.
Okay. So just more of his agent. So you wouldn't really have too much of a say in advising him to do things and not to do things and that sort of thing.
When they come to me and ask me for advice, I'll offer it. But I've always kind of been the dude that's like, look, this is my 2 cents on it, like as your friend, and whatever you want to do is totally your business. And they don't tell me how to run my agency, and I try not to tell them how to do content creation, because I really don't know. That's not necessarily my world. My world is mainly sales.
Yeah, understandable. So just this question might be a little bit on the nose, but it is in relation to what we're talking
Sure.
about. Would you have advised Stevie to not respond? I know Stevie. I've tried to reach out for him, but would that be your advice to not respond to my stuff?
It wouldn't have been necessarily. It just depends. It would be something that, I might encourage him to sit down with you and hear you out off the record, and have an open discussion. But it's not something we typically talk about. Anytime I bring up the idea of, approaching these subjects with creators, they're typically just like, I don't have time for it, is usually the go-to, whether that means that that's true or not. Again, not really something that I push them to do. It's one of those things that, the more influence I have over them, the more responsible I am if it goes wrong. So I try not to be the person that anybody can say, I wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for you. So, yeah, I haven't advised him either way. I've let him know that there's been interest, and, he's chosen to not respond to those inquiries.
Okay, great. So I've got a few questions just to. I know you've seen the original video, and
Yeah.
this coming video that I'm working on, it's going to be revisiting some of those points, then touching on some new things. But One big thing that was part of the previous video was the overall age range that Stevie does videos for.
Hmm.
And because you're his agent, you'd be familiar with demographics and such when you're
Yes.
reaching out. Would you say that Steve, or at least some of his videos, do appeal to a young audience?
So I don't think so, and the reason I'll say that is because, especially with our what our trajectory has been, which has been, doing heavy advertisements and stuff like that, that demographic is the least active in terms of spend. Right? They don't have any money. So that sounds like a really callous thing to say, but that's just the truth. Like the goal for us has always been create a sustainable audience, and then also when it comes in terms of like targeting, there's no reason for him to target a young audience, especially with the style of his content. And I have the demographics too. That was one thing I took umbrage with in the last video, was that it seemed like, the argument was trying to be made that he purposefully is attacking young people or going for the young audience, and that's not true just on what our strategy is or Steve's strategy is, but it's also just not true in terms of what his audience says. So less than 5% of Steve's audience is under the age of 18. And those are demographics that even in the United States, tobacco companies would still allow him to target his fans with. So it's not something we've seen, and all we can really go on is what we know. And what we know is that his audience is not young. At least it's not as young as it appears to be. His second strongest demographic is 18 to 24. So there is I guess you would call it a young audience, but it's not a child audience. It's people who can make informed decisions on purchases. But it's also just like Steve, he just likes that stuff. Like, I'm 30 years old and I still like SpongeBob too. So I could see where the confusion could be, where it's like using childlike themes like Elmo and stuff like that. But I think the Sesame Street's been used on shows like Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. So it's a tough thing to say that just because there are like cartoon elements or themes for young people or from young shows, that there is a target towards young people. But we used to remember SpongeBob was a show that I watched when I was 10, and it's probably something he watched when he was 10. And Elmo's been around for 50 years, so it's tough to say that using those imagery is indicative of like him trying to go for a young audience. Truthfully, I don't subscribe to that theory, and it's nothing we've ever talked about. It's definitely something we would have discussed if it was like, yeah, I'm trying to reduce the age of my audience for longevity. But that's never a conversation that's been had.
I'm it does surprise me that the stats show a small amount of young, because as you mentioned, SpongeBob, that was a recent video he uploaded, and
Right.
and it is a perfectly family friendly video. I have no problem with it. Like, it's and as you said, you watched SpongeBob when you were a kid. I did too. Uh, the thing is that, SpongeBob is and always will be for kids in what it's made for. Like, it's rated
Yeah.
TVY, which is what, 2 to 6 year olds. It's targeting young kids. So when you do a
I think
video
it's.
titled and featuring, and it's just like it's solely about SpongeBob. I'm looking at it here, SpongeBob SquarePants fake guitarist.
Mhm.
Like, that's solely
Yeah. No.
about SpongeBob.
There's no argument that the video is about SpongeBob. It's not. I guess the thing that I'm trying to help identify here is that what it really is targeting is popular culture, right? Because SpongeBob it's one of the biggest cartoons ever, right? And it permeates past age demographics. It's something that many of us watched in the past, and many older people can also relate to. But it's something that's still relevant today. So it would be, I don't know, it's like Fairly Odd Parents or whatever, or Dexter's Lab, or these shows we watch as kids. Yeah, maybe they are for kids, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't resonate with an older audience, and it's not just wildly popular in terms of popular culture. So that was more, I think, the direction of that video was like, what's just like a really popular thing where I can find a fake guitar player, and I think that he just, we get emails too. Like I field emails for Steve daily where people are sending us quote unquote "gefakest" links, and I think that was just one that caught his eye, and he said, "Yeah, that's a popular show. People know SpongeBob." So there was no ill intent. The goal was never to target young people. It was just like, what's a really popular key phrase? When we put it in YouTube, it's going to kick up in the algorithm, and SpongeBob really landed high on that mark. So that's more what it was, and I could definitely see how people would think that he's trying to appeal to a young audience. But his content over time has kind of proven that he's not necessarily trying to be family friendly. He's just having fun.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, SpongeBob would get be popular on YouTube. Would you be familiar, like from the first video I was talking about it, with the COPPA regulations, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act?
Yeah, I was vaguely familiar with it when it first started happening,
Hmm.
and I think it since has exited my brain in terms of just things that I think about daily. Um, if
Well,
I understand it, that's if you're specifically trying to target something, like it was mainly for kids channels, wasn't it?
it
Like Ryan's Toys or whatever.
in relation to YouTube, it was any content like targeting kids, and how they determined that was like, are kids going to watch it? That was pretty much
Right.
it. Um, and so some of those things I had listed, featuring cartoons, featuring uh, music that's like designed for kids, nursery rhymes, that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Overall imagery, topics, that sort of stuff. And
Interesting. Yeah.
and the reason that I bring that up is because, as we were just talking about, SpongeBob fits both a young demographic and an older one too. It works with both age ranges. Um, and what that is according to the FTC would be, uh, they refer to it as a mixed audience, where they view it still as uh, children are still watching. And the reason I bring it up is because on YouTube specifically, there's a little box when you're uploading a video when you say made for kids or not made for kids, and you click the box.
Right.
Um, and it does two things. You're probably aware of it. The first thing is it stops targeted advertising, so if you get a hit in YouTube ad revenue, it's like 80% hit. Um, but also it stops comments. And the reason that is because people were like predators were grooming kids in comments on videos that were made with, you could pretty much determine that there's going to be a child audience involved.
Hmm.
Um, so I have definite concerns there for videos like the SpongeBob video, which came out 23 days after a brand new SpongeBob movie. So like there's a young audience that are being interested in that topic, especially at the time of uploads. Uh, and there's definite concern for predators preying on things like that.
I mean, maybe. I honestly think it's a little bit of splitting hairs at that point when it's like we don't have anything else to go on except for what his audience already is. And utilizing something as big as SpongeBob. If it was a show like Coco Melon or something, that's a current show, and you can even look at somebody like PewDiePie, whose intro is it's like it's a meme, but the Coco Melon intro. Are you familiar with that?
I know it's got like 99 million subscribers on YouTube, but I can't say
Yeah,
I'm.
yeah, exactly. So like that is a really targeted audience for young people, and PewDiePie's intro is like it's every day it's a different version of the Coco Melon intro, and it's one of those things where it's like that doesn't bother me at all. I just personally don't get that worked up about it, but I also don't think that what Steve did or what he's done in the past, I would be hard pressed to identify that as targeting young people. I think Steve's a young guy at heart, and I think he just still finds value in things from his childhood, like Elmo, like SpongeBob. And I'm not trying to be subjective with this. I just truly, when I watched it, my first thought was, I love SpongeBob. It wasn't like, who watches this? This is for babies. I'm trying to just look at it for what it is and for what he's making it for. And I personally I don't feel like it was genuinely a target at young people. And he said it. He's told me personally, he's like, it's a show I like. It's not like I'm trying to look at young people to get them attracted to my channel. He's still swearing and being goofy in his videos, and I don't think that he wants a young audience. I don't think he wants to be a kid's creator.
Okay, all right. So let's move on a little bit.
Sure.
Another topic that I had brought up in the last video was BetterHelp.
Yes.
Right. So I think you've seen the video, so you're probably familiar with what I'm saying. Um, do you think uh, that Steve would have ever maybe removed even just the part of the advertising for BetterHelp, considering it's what came out about it later?
It's something that it's a topic that was discussed, and we determined that we didn't think that what they did was severe enough to merit its removal based on what we were told from people that were actually using the software. That they were saying, yeah, it's actually good. I'm getting help. One of my friends' fiancés did the like the BetterHelp trial. She mentioned to us that it was working really well and she was getting a lot out of it. And they quickly responded to the things that were wrong with the service and fixed them. And I think by the time your video had come out, all of that stuff was kind of old news.
Okay.
Because it had been 2018, I think, was originally when all the problems happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, all right, well, the money's already spent. Like they've already paid. So it's like, there's not really any sense in taking it down if there's actually people that are genuinely feeling like they're getting something from this. Consumers are smart. And I think that's something, maybe that's an American sentiment, but we generally think that consumers are smart and they have agency and that they can choose, whether or not to support these things based on what they know. And there was a ton of literature out there to tell people like, yeah, this company, their terms of service are a little bit gray. You might not pay the same price as somebody else, but those are things that, we leave up to the consumer. We didn't see it as a bad product when we did the ad. And when we did the ad, it was, as far as we knew, it was a stand-up company. It was getting praise all over the place. So we try not to look backwards, and I can't really speak for Steve. At the end of the day, it's always going to be his choice. But generally, when things like that happen, it's like, all right, is this bad enough to really take down? And to us, it was just like, well, I personally didn't think so, and I guess he didn't think so either. So I can't speak for him, and my opinions are my own, I guess. But it was something that people that I knew were using, and they were saying it helped them. So I don't know. It's just kind of one of those opinion things, I guess. It's just like, do you think it's bad? Yeah, they should have better terms of service. Yeah, they should have a more fair pricing system. Is it worth, making a big stink over? Personally, I don't think so.
Well, as you said, consumers are smart. Just sometimes, maybe that'll be blurred a little bit when the people who are going for this product will be people who will be looking for help, maybe have issues and problems that they're facing, and that will likely blur what they're thinking when it comes to getting a product, paying for it, etc.
Yeah, potentially. It's kind of like shopping when you're hungry, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's like we can't, maybe there is a little bit of responsibility on our end, but it was like I said, we didn't promote the product after all of that stuff. Like his words, his promotion were genuine, and it was pre all of that stuff. So it was just one of those things where we just, we try not to look backwards in this business. And, if it was something that it was truly like, yeah, these guys are, killing people or, doing something really erroneous or egregious, yeah, we would have just deleted the video altogether. We just thought it was like, it seemed very opinionated that people didn't like the terms of service. It was like, oh yeah, okay, they're not all licensed counselors. And it was like, all right, well, are these people in any way qualified to help you with, what it is you're going through? Okay, then it's, it's a good service. And if it's not, you cancel. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this, I'm pretty sure that there was some sort of like no risk period where you could try the service, and if you didn't like it, you could be removed from the service.
There was a 7-day free trial. The problem with that, and it was one of the complaints, was when you signed up, you were immediately billed $200. So it wasn't really a free trial at that point.
Yeah, I don't love that. I mean, that just seems shady. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's an issue that I would take up with BetterHelp themselves and not necessarily their advertisers. And I guess you and I are probably just gonna have different perspectives in general on this thing, right? Like, this is how I make my living. So I try to continue to keep the onus on the brand. Like, if any creator was doing something in good faith, I try not to like hold their feet to the fire over it and just say like, all right, Did you think that this was true? Yeah, I did. All right. Well, then, it sounds like it was a mistake, and the brand made some bad decisions that in turn make you look kind of bad. But if it's not something that if no one's intentionally lying to you to sell a product, then you know, for me as a consumer of this online content, and also as somebody who works in the advertising field, it's just tough for me to blame bad business practices on creators.
But don't you think that creators have at least some part of responsibility because
I
it's
do.
their viewers, so they are presenting a product that the viewers, because they like that creator, they're going to take what they say, maybe not
Yeah.
with a pinch of salt, maybe they'll take what they say a little bit closer, or put a little bit
Yeah, very
more.
possibly. Yeah, and I do think there's some culpability in terms of like advertising and being responsible when it comes to like who and what you're pitching. But like I said, I think going after Steve for something retroactively like that is, it's not unfair, but it's just like it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, well, this is in the past, and everything that Steve's done for this video is pretty much already done. Like, as a content creator, you're going to get most of your views in the first week, right? And barring some big spike and getting lucky, most people aren't going to be going back to that video. And I would be interested to pull the analytics on that video and see how many people saw it after the fact. So I guess our thought was, it's something that people have been telling us directly that is helping them. And I think that the whole thing was a bit sensationalized, and a bit overdone. I definitely think that business is, they've had some bad business practices. They're still in business. They still manage to find enough people to use the service to keep them in business. So they've rectified their issues in the past. And that was another thing what we were waiting for, was to see what is the business's response going to be. Because if they're just going to be like, yeah, well, boo-hoo for you, sorry, tricked you, then yes, that would have changed, I think, how we felt about keeping the ad alive. But the CEO's immediate response was, we're going to fix all this stuff. These are concerns that you have, and we're going to make it better. And they did. So, if it was something we felt like today was still being sold as a false bill of goods, yeah, it wouldn't have been able to live. But based on the response from the business and the response from people who were actually real users of the service, we felt like this is doing more good than it is harm.
And okay, so just one more question in relation to that.
Sure.
Are you maybe concerned a little bit about Steve seems to be a little bit hit or miss with disclosure of advertisements. Sometimes he does, this video is sponsored by, or, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's, for example, like the BetterHelp video, where it's quite the opposite. I believe in that one he said, I know this is going to seem like a shameless plug, but I promise you it's not.
Yeah, I think that was just what he should have said was, I'm not just trying to sell you this product. Like it's actually something that I find value in. But you're right. It was, what I would say is that at worst, just a bad use of words. I don't think he was trying to trick anybody. It's funny, the FTC disclosure stuff is, to me, and again, I may be looking at this through rose-colored glasses because I do this every single day. But to me, it seems like so arbitrary. Like, you get a little box in the corner and there's someone's trying to sell you something in this video. And it's like, when is it not, except for what you just mentioned, a bad use of words, when has it not been obvious that, he's trying to sell something, these ad reads? To me, I try not to think that people consuming are that dense, that they don't, when they're being sold something. And with the exception of what we just discussed, I have a hard time believing that people wouldn't know that, he's trying to get them to download Raid Shadow Legends or whatever the case. So for me, the FTC disclosure thing is just like, I don't know, it falls on deaf ears, I guess, a little bit with me, because it's like, every creator this is not just Steve, right? This is across the board. All these people are saying this video is sponsored by blank, or thanks to blank for supporting this video. Links are in the description, go download it, support the channel. Like, how much more information do you need that you're being sold something?
Well, I suppose we could obviously debate this for a very long time,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
I suppose it's down to who you never really know who's watching your video. You could be talking to people
True.
who are young, who are very influenced by things in a bad way. You could be talking to people who have disabilities and like mental
Sure.
disabilities and stuff. So there has to be at least a chance for them to critically think about it. Does this person genuinely are a diehard fan of Raid Shadow Legends, or are they just getting, $5,000 to say it, So it gives them a
Right.
chance to critically think, especially.
Right, and I don't necessarily disagree with that premise, or like, it doesn't bother me when they're told that they're being sold something, right? We thought that's what we were doing in the ad reads. So it's like, okay, you want us to tell them again, with a little box that they're being sold something? It's fine. We're not trying to be discreet about the fact that we're selling a product here. But yeah, I wouldn't debate you on whether or not it might add value. But I guess the only thing that I would debate is whether or not it adds enough for that to be something that, like, I would never think of any creator as like a bad person if they didn't click that box. And it's also just something it's so easy to forget when you've been doing YouTube for 10 years, and that FTC disclosure didn't exist for a lot of those years. So it's something that, like, a lot of these guys just toss their video up and they're just like, all right, cool, it's up, I'm going to forget about it now and go on to the next one. But it's something that definitely he's been more aware of, because the last couple of videos have had those disclosures. And it's something that, it's something that we talk about, and that, we're trying to retroactively go back and fix all that stuff. But it's one of those moving forward pieces that I think that a lot of creators that I've talked to are trying to get better about. But it's not for lack of trying. I promise you that. It's what it is. I think is one part forgetfulness, and then the other part just, I personally think that the FTC disclosure is just like, it is for the people who you're saying, like, the most vulnerable. And in terms of, like, overall viewership, I think that we would find that those people are very, very, very minimal in Steve's world. And we can't track some of those things. We can't track people with disabilities, obviously. There's no disclosure on YouTube for that. So I think you're right there. But we can track the age of his audience. And his falls within the margin of basically being able to sell anything. Even federally regulated, stuff like tobacco and alcohol. He would be able, based on the brand's discretion, he would be able to target his audience based on the population of underage people that are in his constituents.
Yeah, I have noticed that there's quite a vast span over what Steve has advertised in the past, like going from, mobile apps where you're rescuing whatever guy's puppy, I think that was in the other video, to, like, just recently, here's 50% off at a sex shop.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it, right? Like, we try not to discriminate based on that stuff, because, like I said, it's another thing that I try to help a lot of people understand, and I think you understand this. You're a creator, you have a channel, like, you can understand these analytics. But we know that people are unique, people are diverse, right? The same people who might play a mobile game about, saving a puppy are also having sex. Like, I play the most innocuous mobile games on my phone. So it's just like, we don't look at anyone's audience typically as a monolith. And that's something that I really like about Steve, is he's not afraid to know who the people are that are watching his video, right? And we take cues from the brands, whether or not something is successful or not. And that's the reason you'll see a lot of the same ad over and over and over again, like Manscaped, or like Nord or Raid. It's because we're seeing success with that stuff, right? And even with his Manscaped reads, they have that hint of, like, a adult theming towards them. Even their their tagline is "Your balls will thank you." It's a little bit crass, but it's one of those things that it's just like, well, it is what it is. His adult is predominantly, overwhelmingly adult audience. So, we don't have any fear about pushing adult products to them, but we also recognize, the inner kid in everybody, that some people like SpongeBob and some people just want to play mobile games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the brands have also done their homework. So, these brands are not going to be positioning products to an audience like Steve's if they were targeted at young people. They wouldn't find any value in that. The reason is because we send them the analytics, right? I don't know if you've ever done I think you've done paid sponsors before. But when you get to, like, the really big guys, like the Nords and, the Manscapes, who are spending $1 million a month on ads across the platform, they're wanting to know who they're targeting with your integration. So they're saying, yeah, send me your analytics. And if any of these products were actually targeting young people, none of them would advertise with Steve. Because they'd be saying, you don't have enough young people in your audience for us to get value out of this. Nobody's going to download our game about, puppy kitty dance party because less than 5% of your audience is under the age of 18. So we don't really want it.
Okay. So, all right. Let's move on to just the final thing that I wanted to mention, and
Sure.
this one is maybe more opinion based, and I'd be asking for maybe your opinion on it. Um,
Cool.
so in the initial video, I talked about Stevie's video about haters, that thing. In
Yeah, I think it was like where he went through the comments or something maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, in that I showed that he was showing people's full names and everything, and some of them weren't
Right.
saying too many bad things really. And then I also showed that in response to that, people had uh, gone to their channel and harassed them because they were in that video. They're being a hater to Steve. And he did it again recently enough. There was a video being nice to my haters, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And in that one, there was, I mean, it could have been classed as a joke, although maybe it seemed a little bit too on the nose, particularly maybe just because of the way I was looking at it. But he said, could you guys help me tear this guy apart? That's the quote.
Hmm.
Um, do you think that maybe Steve should be a little bit more proactive when it comes to censoring names of people for overall safety reasons of just people who are commenting?
I mean, I would never tell him not to do that. Like I would never say, no, don't censor the names. I'm with you on, people's privacy. I don't know. You probably know better than I do on what the legality is around that. I don't know what it is in the U.S., but um, my understanding is that if people are posting, on the internet, that it's free game to reuse whatever they post publicly. It's sort of like being in a public place where you can't tell people not to film you if you're in public. So from the perspective of the people he's talking about, maybe yes, they would like to continue to sustain some anonymity. But what I will say is a lot of people actually reached out and said, man, that was so funny. Thank you so much. So many people watched my video after that. And it's anecdotal, right? Like probably not all of them, but there was definitely a lot of people, surprisingly, that were emailing me saying that was so funny. Like I got a lot of hits on my YouTube channel because of that, etc. So, and that doesn't change the fact that I think what you perceive or what some people perceive is he's actually trying to hurt people. And genuinely, that's just not the case. It's just like, it's not the dude Stevie is. And to some extent, I wish he would actually talk to you, because then you could just realize he's so different, not on the internet. And it's like, personally, I don't have a problem with any of the content he's ever done. I've never said, yo, you took it too far. And I hope that I never have to. And I've luckily only ever had to say that with a few people. And typically, I just stop working with people like that. But yeah, I mean, could he be more responsible with what he does on the internet? For sure. I think we all could be. But it's one of those things that we're learning a lot about right now, right? And I think you have a lot to teach people. And that's one of the really positive things about what you do is you bring to light a lot of stuff that a lot of us are not even thinking about. And it's not like, I don't know, you have this perspective and this way of looking at the world that's so different from a lot of people. Because where you might think like, how could they not see this? We might be thinking, I can't believe he saw that. Like, I can't believe this is the way that the lens he looks through. And not like it's a bad thing. It's just a different thing. You have this ability to like see people not as, pixels on your screen, which is, I think, after a long time of becoming a content creator, that's just kind of how it feels, I think, especially after you deal with a decade of people shitting on you. They stop becoming people, right? The humanity is removed a little bit from what you do, and they just become dots on your screen. But, I think that you bring a fresh perspective to the way we look at anonymous people on the internet and how we treat them. So, you have my respect for that. But as a whole, I don't think Stevie's done anything necessarily quote unquote wrong. Even at his lowest moments, I would just chalk it up to, we tried to be funny and it didn't work. We were trying to make light of a bad situation and it didn't resonate with everybody. So, but that's comedy, right? Like at its core, that's what Steve's doing. Is he's doing comedy. He's just doing it with a guitar. So, we definitely try to be sensitive to, who and what we're saying. But at the end of the day, comedy is kind of meant to push those lines. And some people's line is a little bit closer than others. And I think that after a decade of being in content creation, Steve's line is probably a lot further than some other people's, based on what people have probably said about him and the way they've made him feel. This is a guy that's been underneath the gun for almost his whole career for just being annoying. And yeah, to some extent, yes, he is annoying. But honestly, I love it. It makes me laugh, and I'm just glad that he's different and he's doing what he wants. And, he found his online personality that he can just be himself.
Okay. Well, I know I said this would probably be about 10 minutes, and it's been quite a bit longer. I just want to
Oh,
take
yeah, no problem.
one more question. Again, it's more based around opinion, but
Sure.
Richard Benson. I know I've talked about him a lot. Quite a few other videos have been made about that as well.
Sure.
More specifically about Steve's original video, and then he did
Right.
a couple more mentioning him. In one that was, I think it's about 6 months old at this point, Steve he apologized, and then he said that he'd remove the video if people wanted him to. And from what I was collecting, I saw that there was a decent amount of people who did want him to. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and like the video is still up, it's monetized, it's all that, and I don't think it can be argued against that particular phrasing or statement did drive a lot more new people towards the original video. Um, like there's comments with I think about 500-600 likes on it saying who's here before he deletes the video. Um,
Right.
but my question to you would be, do you think he should delete the video?
You know, this is where I think that you and I, like, it's funny because I think we're a lot alike, but I also think we're very different. And this is one of those places where I think we're probably very different. Um, I think that, again, comedy is subjective. There's going to be stuff that people think it's funny and some people think it's not. Richard Benson's a unique guy, right? Because he's the first guy to, like, allow himself to be the butt of a joke. He goes up on stage and people throw eggs at him. It's not like he's forced to be there. So to some extent, he recognizes the novelty in people hating on him and shaming him. He also continually went on this TV show in Italy, where they would continually, like, play a song. Like, they'd bring out a band, right? And they would, like, it's kind of like getting rickrolled, except for they would always play his song. And it was a song that he was, like, claimed to be agonized by and tortured by, because they'd bring somebody out and then it would be like they pretend to start playing a song and then they play his song and he'd fall on the ground and in agony and scream at God and all this other stuff. And it's just like, to what extent is he, like, part of this joke? Because he doesn't seem to be trying to be taken seriously by very many people. And I recognize that it's being alluded to that he's sick in terms of, like, mental capacity, but I don't know that it's ever been confirmed that he's actually having mental diminishment. I think he has arthritis and heart disease, but I don't know if the dude's all there mentally. It's not for me to speculate. It's just a thing that Steve thought was funny, and some people did, and some people didn't. And it's a thing that I don't think that we'll be revisiting in the future, just based on the reaction. And it's at this point, it's like, all right, what else do we have to say about the guy? It's over. The damage has been done, if that's the way you see it. I don't think that he should delete the video. I don't ever think that people should necessarily delete videos that they're not happy with or not proud of. That's something that, I really like Philip DeFranco for, is that you can still go back and watch his very first videos and they're awful. But it's something that he's like, this is a reminder of where I've been and potentially where I don't want to go back to. But I think that at this point, Steve deleting the video, it's not like that video's earning him tons and tons of money. At best, it's probably doing a few hundred clicks a day. And what does that equate to? A few pennies. So he doesn't gain a lot from leaving it up, except for, drawing a line in the sand and essentially saying, this is who I am. This is my content. It might not be funny to everybody, but it's here now. And it's either, however you see it, it's either a mark on my past of a mistake I've made, or it's me saying, yeah, I'm not going to change who I am. And I'm not going to delete this because some people think that I should.
Okay. Well, I could say maybe that I would disagree to an extent of if a video affects another person greatly. Like if if a video had some information or something that affected another person, maybe that would be case to remove it or private it or whatever. But thank you for
Do
the
you think that
interview.
that's the case with Steve's video? Just curious.
Well, considering like okay, the running joke is the guy's name, right? Richard Benson. Richard put to a drum beat.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had a look and I've found little kids doing it and posting it up online and everything. If you've got a guy who's at least at minimum alluded to having some mental problems, I could
Sorry, I'm a the dog's barking.
no problem. Um, if you could see that, right, it's been alluded to that he's got mental problems. Uh, Maybe how his name being a running joke in across a few videos
Hmm.
in front of quite a lot of people uh, may affect him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's working under the assumption that the video is being seen by someone like that. And if that was the case, I keep wanting to say your name, and I'm realizing that I don't know it. What's your name? Your first name?
Well, I generally don't say
Oh,
it
you
on
don't
the
say it.
channel. Yeah,
Okay, okay. I'll just call you KDH. But yeah, so generally, like if we had gotten any information that it was like getting back to Richard and his camp, and they wanted it deleted or something, for sure. Like that's an entirely different story. But people, it can be so hard to discern what people are actually mad about and what people are trying to be mad about, especially when you're someone like Steve, who everything seems to piss people off. Like it's just your face, or he was like one of the most hated guitarists on Guitar World. So it's just like at some point he, for better or for worse, got really thick skin and just said, "I'm gonna just do whatever I want, and if people have a problem with it, you know, they can." They can stop watching. And that's really what I encourage people to do. If you have issues with any content creator, the best thing you can do is just stop watching. That hurts them the most. They need your views. They need viewership. They need your subscription. And if you and enough people feel the same way to stop watching somebody, that's the most powerful thing you can do to truly hurt somebody. And I think with Steve's audience, we pay attention to that. And if it had happened, it's something we definitely would have addressed. But I think I can't speak for Steve. None of what I've said is speaking for him, just so we're clear. This is all my opinions and how I feel on the matters. And they're anecdotal of like discussions that we may have had, but I'm not speaking for him. All that I can say is Steve is such a better person than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And he's truly, truly a blessing to be around. He's so generous. And honestly, just one of the most honest and thoughtful people. I think that sometimes I think he's just forgetful and careless in terms of what he does on the internet. And to some extent, I think that that's how we all should be. Comedy is not always a pretty thing. It can be nasty. It can be just downright gross. But, it's what it is. And we value the ability to say things like that, whether or not they're nice or pretty or feel good. I value highly Steve's right to do that. And I value everyone's right, your right to say what you want about it, and the audience's right to just tune out. And I think that's how we all should just operate as an online society, and just say, hey, look, I don't like it, so I'm going to tune out, or I'm going to make a video about why I don't like it. And I hope that some people can see past, the faults of Steve's past. I think moving forward, fingers crossed, hopefully we agree that he's trying to be better, but it'll always be subjective. You might take umbrage with certain things that we may not even be thinking about, and you have an open line to me. If you think that something is uncouth or maybe out of line, I'd love to hear from you, because I genuinely think that you have a sense for this stuff that some people don't have, myself included. So if you're seeing stuff from any of people that I manage, or excuse me, I use the word loosely, but anyone that I'm working with as an agent, I'd love to hear from you and just say, hey, this might come off sideways to some people. Maybe you should consider XYZ. And I would find a lot of value in that.
Okay, well, thank you, and I'll definitely do that if I see anything. Um, Thank you for doing this interview with me. I think you
Sure.
represented yourself really well. Um,
Thank you.
so I'm going to be working on my follow-up video to the original Stevie video. and that should be done in a couple of weeks. But if you're okay with me posting this interview up for people to see,
For sure.
get your point of view on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could preface it with the fact that these are just my opinions, and I'm not speaking for Steve. I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want anything that I say being used against him. He doesn't. I don't even think he knows I'm doing this. To be completely honest, I haven't really talked to him about it. So, I think he might find out that I've done this after it comes out, or he may never know that I've done it because I don't know if he watches, the channel. But if we're still recording, then all I want people to know is I'm speaking for myself, and I'm having just an honest, open communication with KDH about what I believe. And none of what I'm saying here is coming from Steve or will be said to Steve. It's just how I feel as somebody who knows him very intimately and works with him on a day-to-day basis, and especially as it relates to advertising and stuff like that. So, I'm okay with you releasing this information.
Great. Okay. And just before we go, I just want to say that if you do talk to Steve and he does want to communicate me even off the record, I've talked with people off the record about videos I've done in the past on them or things. So let him know if he wants to. You know where to contact me. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So thanks for talking, and
For sure.
I really appreciate that.
What is there? There's topics of me in the video or what? Because I remember that's what you were saying, and I was like, well, I better talk to this guy because pretty good at taking people down. I don't want to not be able to say something in my defense about it, but I just wanted to see what the information was that you were telling people.
Well, I wanted to make sure that you were I knew you were his agent, but I also wanted to see if you were his official manager or that. But because if you were his official manager, you do have at least some responsibility to what he does. So that was quite important. Also based around videos like, for example, the SpongeBob video, and then, a few days later, a few weeks later, whatever, there's advertisements for sex shops. You have to wonder if I'm sure you see what angle I'm going for here.
Of course. Yeah, but again, I mean, I guess that comes with the perspective of like, if we thought he was trying to attack a young audience with that stuff, then yes, we probably would have said, it's one or the other. But because of the content of the SpongeBob video, it still remains that he is not effectively trying to increase his audience by going younger. But yeah, so that's actually, I don't know if we're still recording it. If we are, it's fine. But that's actually why, like I said in the beginning of the video, I stopped doing artist management, because that kept happening where people would be like, so and so said X, or he did this, or he did this at NAMM, and this brand's mad. And so I kind of just threw my hands up and was just like, yeah, I'm fucking over this. Like I'm officially not managing any YouTubers, anybody with a massive presence anymore. I'm taking it strictly agent work. It's kind of gig work really, because I just bring them deals, and they take them. If they don't, they don't. But yeah, it got to that point where I was like, managing is not worth it, because I wasn't making any money doing it. I was kind of just doing it as like a perk to them. To kind of get in with a lot of these guys was like helping them with some of the innocuous stuff that they didn't want to do themselves. And then it ended up being like, okay, this isn't serving me. So I backed out of it. But yeah, that's, good to know. But yes, I agree with you. I saw that coming from a mile away, like the culpability of mistakes that they make, and just being like, I don't want to be part of that. So, but a side note, it's, the offer's open to you as well. I've seen your gear reviews. I like them. I think that you do a great job. And if you are interested in taking on paid advertisement, it's something we should definitely talk about.
Okay, well, I'll definitely consider it in the future.
Cool. Right on, man. Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right, and thank you.